What's up, everybody? This is Colin, and welcome back to a new episode of the Aligned Lifestyle Podcast. I'm super excited to be recording today's episode, just like I am every other time, but today is more of an impromptu recording. It's been in the last hour that I've had a lot of thoughts, emotions, ideas flowing through my head, so I came up here, put the headset on, hit the record button to bring this episode to you. To provide, some perspective, today's Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving. When this airs tomorrow, it will be Friday. So I hope you enjoyed your Thanksgiving and time with your family. And with that being said, Thanksgiving is a time of year that the most often asked question is, what are you grateful for? And I'm sure many of you have heard this question in the last few days and you're contemplating it yourself, is that this can be a very reflective time of the year for us as people. And what we're going to be diving into today with today's podcast episode is going to be gratitude and rites of passage. And I'm going to tie those two things together by sharing a personal story of mine and what these thoughts and ideas in the last hour have lent me to wanting to share with you. So with Thanksgiving, it's at the end of the month of November, and so is my dad's birthday. Today is November 24th. My dad's birthday is in a few short days here, November 29th. And this year, he would be 67 years old. And in 2 months from today, exactly, January 24th, it's going to mark 6 years since he passed. And this is important because this time of the year can be very reflective for me. I reflect on my dad, his role, his presence in my life. And this year, it is predominantly coming from a place of gratitude and appreciation. And especially in the last few years since he passed, it's been full of resentment, hurt, and a lot of other negative emotions. And that's why I want to share this with you today, because my perspective is different. If you would imagine that resentment, the hurt on a battery scale like you have on your phone when it's whether it's 100% charged or 20% charged, that battery level is dropped from being, like almost 100% to significantly down, where the appreciation, the gratefulness has risen up a lot this year. And that's because I've done a lot of inner work myself, looking at my thoughts, my emotions, my mindset, connecting with my heart, and specifically enrolling in a program called Training Camp for the Soul that is revolved around healing childhood trauma. And that's what has really put me into a place. And I've done a lot of other personal development work this year that has put me here. But I want to share how grateful I am for my dad, because that wasn't always the case. Like I said, especially in the last few years since he's passed and the years leading up to him passing. My dad was an alcoholic for 20 years. From the age of 6 in my life to the age of 26 when he passed, he was an alcoholic. And that heavily influenced my resentment towards him, my hurt, the lack of security, love, and safety that I felt with him over the years that I didn't totally understand until as of late. All I knew is that I was hurt. And it's something that I've allowed to affect me a lot in my years of living prior to him dying and even after. And the irony in all of this is that the 20 years that my dad was an alcoholic started in December of 1996 when we flew back to Iowa for my dad's funeral, my grandpa. That my grandpa died at nearly the same time of the year, just a month difference, at nearly the same age, I think within around a year. And because he was an alcoholic as well and complete organ failure. And the same story ran its course with my dad as well. And that's part of what I'm grateful for and some of the lifestyle changes that I've made this year. But really, like I said, I'm coming from this place of gratitude for my dad, and it wasn't always that way. And it's super freeing. It is phenomenal to feel this way and how much I do appreciate my dad and how he was able to show up for me. And my dad's passing was a rite of passage for me. And it's something that I knew and experienced at that moment in time. And it's something that really shifted my perspective on life. And that's what I want to share with you. Okay. So, gratitude, thanksgiving. I'm grateful for my dad when in the past it was very resentful and hurt. I'm coming from a place of gratitude for him. And now I want to shift into the idea of rites of passage. And I want to start by defining rites of passage. So I'm going to share my screen with you here. For those of you guys not watching the video and you're listening, we're going to define rites of passage. Pulled it up in the good old Google here. A rite of passage, a ceremony or event marking an important stage in someone's life, especially birth, puberty, marriage, and death. And I wanted to define that because my dad's passing was a rite of passage for me. And I've had many rites of passage in my life. This was a very significant one for me, and I'm going to share a story about it. And because it very much so changed the trajectory of my life, shifted my perspective on life. And it's been this year that I really started taking action on that. And I'm going to highlight that a little bit later. But where I want to start with this rites of passage, if any of you guys are familiar with Matthew McConaughey, the actor, all right, from Dazed and Confused and many other great movies, but he wrote a book called Green Lights. And there's a part in this book, and if you haven't read that book, please go read it. It's a fantastic book. It's just highlighting journal entries that he wrote for 35 out of his 50 years of life. And he put it all together in this memoir, and it's just a phenomenal read. And there's a specific part in that book, ironically enough, that he was out shooting, I believe it was Dazed and Confused at the time. And he gets a call that his dad had passed. And he shares this perspective that just clicked with me. And when that clicked with me, it was 3 years after my dad had passed. And I didn't understand my dad's passing as a rite of passage for me until really that moment. And I want to read what Matthew McConaughey shared in that passage here. So this is an excerpt from his book. And he reads, "Losing my father, like it is for many, was my most seminal rite of passage into manhood. No more safety net, no one above the law in government looking after me anymore. It was time for me to grow up. Time to say goodbye to the boy I'd been." And I remember reading this part in the book. And when I read this, it was just like, damn. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Because up until the point that I got the call on Monday, January 16th, 2017 from my mom, that she had found out that my dad was in the hospital and it's not looking good, because he had alienated himself from our family for like the last year, because he knew that his health was declining. He knew that he was on the tail end of his life, and he didn't want to be around us and affect, especially myself, my sister, my mom. He just wanted to go off and not have it like influence our lives in any way. And that didn't end up being the case, but we are constantly worried about him. And then came this call that he is in the hospital and it's not good. And whoops. Up until that moment, I wouldn't even say in that moment. It was later in that week. So that was January 16th. My dad had passed on January 24th. So that was almost a span of, 8 days? 8 days. And just like Matthew McConaughey wrote, in my eyes, my dad was invincible. He was invincible. I knew he was an alcoholic, but there's no way that this was going to bring him down. There's no way he was ever going to die because of it. Until then. And I remember going into that hospital so pissed off at him. So fucking angry. That when I saw him, I couldn't even look at him. I didn't want to talk to him. And all he wanted to do was say sorry to me. But it was in that moment that I saw my dad in that hospital bed, not looking good, that I began to realize that this might be it. And I didn't want to accept it right away. I didn't. Because to me, my dad was invincible. He was above the law. He was my security blanket. I knew, regardless if he alienated himself from our family, I knew he was still there. And it was reassuring to me. Regardless of how absent he was from me, regardless of how I didn't receive the love from him in the way that I wanted to, that I didn't feel secure and feel safe around him at times, how alone I felt, sometimes neglected, and all that I was carrying in that moment with my dad. The dude's pretty much on his deathbed, and all I could do was be angry with him in that moment because I had so much pent up resentment, hurt, and I didn't even know that I was on the verge of this rite of passage moment. I was just thrust into it. And my then girlfriend, now wife, was with me, and I appreciate the hell out of that because having her be there with me was not all the support that I needed. No one could provide the amount of support that I needed, but the amount of support that she provided me was so appreciated. And that's like, I needed that in that moment because I didn't want to accept that my dad was not invincible and that this was the beginning of the end for him. And I was 26 at the time. Yes, I was mature and I'd grown up. I just started living on my own, and all this shit was running through my head about how I'm going to move back home and be with my mom and sister because they needed me. But this was my seminal rite of passage into manhood. And in that moment, in that hospital on January 16th, that Monday, that afternoon, seeing my dad was the beginning of that realization for me, and I didn't understand it at the time. And as the week went on, my anger, my frustration, my resentment slowly turned into sadness, grief, and just wanting to connect with my dad in a way that I never had. But to be honest, my dad was in like no mental condition to really be able to hold much of a conversation. And it was one of the hardest things for me to accept because I had so much that I just wanted to talk to him. And in that moment, I wanted to put all the hurt, all the frustration and anger on the back burner and just get to know my dad one more time and just to get to connect with him. Because I knew I was beginning to understand and accept the fact that he wasn't going to be here forever. And that not in that moment, but I didn't understand that this was my initiation into manhood. And it was so powerful for me in that moment. And I remember my last conversation with my dad. One thing that my dad and I we really connected on and really bonded over was baseball. Baseball was like my first true love, the thing that I fell in love with, and I would give up anything for. And I did eventually. I gave up every other sport for baseball. And I remember just wanting to have a conversation with him and ask him what his favorite year of me playing baseball was. And I got that answer, and it was the most not off the wall answer. It was just not the year that I was expecting it to be. And I remember him sharing that with me, and it was what was my single A year. Single A, for you guys not familiar, it's in a little league level of baseball, and it's probably like my third year of baseball. And I didn't get an exact answer. Like I said, my dad wasn't really in a place to have uh, wordy conversation or deep conversation like I really desired. But so I didn't really. All I could do is speculate as to why that was his favorite year. And for me, when I reflected on it, that was the year that I fell in love with baseball. I always loved baseball, but that was a year that you could start pitching from, from the mound and pitching to kids. And I really found that I could play baseball. I could pitch, I could field, I could hit. And it wasn't by any means a cockiness. It was just like I fell in love with this game. And I fell in love with that. And it was something that was beyond meaningful and created a lot of connection and bond between my dad and I. And I know I'm getting to the rite of passage part. I'm reflecting. This is very uh, I'm grateful to be able to reflect on this right now because I haven't really talked about my last conversation with my dad in quite some time. And I just remember holding his hand in that moment and not wanting to leave that hospital room, just to hold on to that memory with him, and just knowing that there's so much that I didn't know, that I didn't understand about my dad. And at that point, I knew I wasn't going to get it straight from the source, and it was super hard for me to want to leave and know that that was the end of it. Because subconsciously, I knew that when I left that hospital, and my mom had told me, my now wife had told me that once I leave, I'm not coming back to see him, because we had decided to put him on morphine and just let him go away peacefully. And it was the hardest decision of my life. To leave that space with him. And even now, I can feel his hand in mine. And in that moment, all I could really experience, not all I could, but what I was experiencing in that moment was sadness, grief, hurt, resentment, upset. Yet I wanted to hold on to it, because part of me knew that once I left that room is that I was leaving that door frame, leaving that hospital, that I was entering this new life of mine, that I want to pull it up again, that there was no more safety net. There's no one above the law and government looking after me anymore in my eyes. And it was time for me to grow up. It was time for me to enter manhood. And time to say goodbye to the boy that I'd been. That I thought my dad was invincible up until that moment. And that rite of passage was the most important one in my life, because it thrust me into knowing that I was the man of the house in that sense. And it's important. Rites of passage are important because it's your call to adventure to this new phase of life. And you could be resistant to that because it's not familiar, because it's foreign, it's uncomfortable, it's going to challenge you. And this is my encouragement for you to lean into rites of passage. That decision that is so hard for you to make, that may be causing you a lot of stress and anxiety, overwhelm, uncertainty, to lean into that, because that's the sign that you are about to have this breakthrough and that you are about to see life through this new lens. You're going to have this new perspective on life. And in that moment, I did. And I share this now because I didn't fully understand what that new perspective was. And I was very resistant to it. I would not say until as of late, until as of the last couple of weeks, have I really leaned into that idea of entering manhood, being the father, being the husband that I want to be. And I know that not everyone here has experienced a parent passing yet, and I don't wish that on anybody to the fullest degree. But for some of you, it may be that rite of passage that you need, and I don't hope it. I really don't wish it on you right away. But rites of passage allow you to see life through a different lens, to take that safety net away, to take away the idea that someone is immortal. They're indestructible. They're invincible. Everybody's invincible. And that rites of passage are necessary in your life. And you may be avoiding one right now because it's uncomfortable, because it challenges you, because it's uncertain. There's nothing certain in life. Nothing. But your rite of passage that you might be avoiding right now because it's uncomfortable to you is just the challenge that you need. There's nothing that you cannot do. If you can think about it, if you can envision yourself doing it, then it's possible. You just may not see that way right now. And for me, in that moment, when I was leaving that hospital room, I didn't see the possibility of me being able to exist in life and move forward in life without my dad. But it was 100% possible. And I avoided leaning into that rite of passage for a very long time. And where this all comes to full circle for you and sharing this story is that this year, 2022, I have invested in myself in a way that I never, ever, ever, ever thought I would. Because I didn't believe in myself enough, because I didn't think I could do these things, because I didn't think I was enough. I didn't think I was worthy of it. And I was attaching my self-worth to all these different outcomes. But my self-worth is not those outcomes. They are separate. I am 100% worthy of success in the way that I envision it. I'm 100% worthy of creating the life that I want, not for me, just me, but for my family, for my mom, my sister. And I'm leaning into that right now. And especially in this last couple of weeks, the theme is I've come to a place of making decisions that I'm like, I don't know. That's a big investment for me. But what if you said yes? And what if you started saying yes more? What if you started leaning in more? And what if you started leaning into these rites of passage more? Rites of passage, they could be these big things. They could also be these smaller things. But if you lean into them, on the other side of that, yes, there's challenge, there's growth, it's your call to adventure, there's uncertainty. Get mentorship, get guidance, get support. You don't have to pay for it, but maybe you do. But on that other side is a new upgraded version of you. One that you think about, but you tell yourself that it's not possible, that you can't do it because you're just uncomfortable with it. But lean into it and start saying yes more. And understand the importance of rites of passage. Because like I said, this year, more than any other year, yes, I've spent more money than ever. And it's not about that. It's about the belief that whatever I'm investing in, time, attention, money, whatever it is, that I know that I could do it. Is that with some of these decisions, there has been uncertainty with me. There has been I don't know. What if I can't do it? Well, what if I can? What if I do it? What does it look like if I accomplish this? What does it look like when I accomplish this? Because I will. And that's where I'm at in life right now. That's where I'm at 31, going on 32, is that I've had a lot of talks with my mom, and that a lot of what I'm doing now, going into entrepreneurship, being self-employed, were things that my dad wanted to do, but he never did. And she said something recently that she was like, I always tried to convince him to do it. And he wanted to do it, but he just never took that step. And I looked at her and I said, one generation later, I'm doing it. And that's what I'm grateful for with my dad. Yes, maybe he didn't do those things. And yes, he was an alcoholic, but at the same time, he influenced the shit out of my life. There's so much that I picked up from him that I'm grateful for, that it's time for me to start focusing on those things. And that's what I'm grateful for. That's what I'm appreciative of, because it's ultimately serving me now. And he's not here. Well, he is here, actually. He's right up here in my room. Wow, he is here. And I'm taking ownership of my life right now. I'm stepping into that role of manhood. And yes, I stepped into it then, but now it's coming to fruition. And I'm so excited about what I'm leaning into right now and what I'm going to be creating in 2023, and what you can be doing too. There's these rite of passages in your life that you're avoiding because they're uncomfortable, they're uncertain, and lean into them. That's my encouragement to you. And what you're resentful for, think about what you could be grateful for. Instead of driving all that energy and the motivation from what you resent, what are you grateful for about that person, that situation? What did you learn? Instead of focusing on the negativity of it, look at what you can see as the positivity of it. It's not about being fake positive or anything like that. just about seeing the reality of it. What is the reality of it? What are you seeing from it? Because you're choosing to only look at what you're resentful for, and you're just going to carry that resentment around. And I encourage you to start leaning into that, because that could be a rite of passage for you. Take a breath, Colin. Yeah. Gratitude and rites of passage. There's rites of passage in your life, and you've encountered them if you've been married, you've had kids. I encourage you to look at what you've learned from those. And even the memories, the rites of passage that may be negative in your mind, start looking at what could be the positive. What did you gain from it? What did you learn? What opportunities arose for you? What can you lean into more now? What can you be grateful for? With that said, I'm going to go and start wrapping this one up here for you guys. Again, happy Thanksgiving for you guys listening to this after. I hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving with your family. And if this got any thoughts, emotions stirred up in you, and you feel inclined to reach out to me, you can reach out to me on Instagram at Colin, COLLIN _ Meeves, MEEV as in Victor, ES. Shoot me a message. I'd love to listen, support you any way that I can. If you need some guidance, some support, not sure how to think about this or what to do with it, then reach out to me. I'm here for you. And I hope you're enjoying time with your family as you embark on this holiday season, wherever you may be, whatever holidays you celebrate. And just be grateful for what you got in your life, and learn and lean into those rites of passages. Yeah, with that being said, if you want to connect, follow me on Instagram at Colin _ Meeves. Shoot me a message. Let's connect. Let's talk. Let's get to know each other. I love connecting with other entrepreneurs, self-employed, girl dads, husbands. Dude, I love connecting with you. I also have an email list that I put out 2 emails each week. Shoot me a message. I can get you so you can subscribe to that and get yourself some good positive content each week to help you grow and be a better dad, be a better entrepreneur, self-employed, grow in your career, and double time with your family, man. You want more time with your family? Yeah. And one thing I want to touch on is this is my encouragement to you to step into who you are more authentically. Do more of what you enjoy. Think of this one question. What could I do right now so I could be more of me? And insert your name. What could I do right now so I can feel more like Colin? Take out Colin and insert your name. It's one question I want you to think about right now. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and sign off. This was great. I enjoyed my time, and I know there's value in it, and I'd love to hear what value you got from this. All right, guys, take care. See you on the next one.